2025. In case you're watching this in the future, and to all my fellow members of the tribe, Gmar Chatima Tova. Hope you have a happy Yom Kippur. That's right. May all your kippurs be delicious. And may we see peace sooner rather than later. If you've been following what's been happening in the news in the recent days, you know, with regards to the Israel war versus Hamas, you know that President Trump floated the idea of a particular 21-point plan. There were some negotiations back and forth. Benjamin Netanyahu, who happens to be in the United States following the UN General Assembly, where he gave a speech, went to the White House to visit with Trump, and they had a press conference, and they basically announced that the new 20 plan was on the table, and that Hamas has to either accept it or face the consequences. Israel accepted the 20-point plan. That means that from the time that Israel accepted it, because in writing it says that the Hamas has 72 hours to release all of the hostages from the time that Israel accepts the plan, or else the deal is off the table and Israel can basically finish what it has to do in Gaza to end the Hamas rule in Gaza and hopefully liberate all of the hostages, those who are alive as well as those who unfortunately are not. And it seems to be having some kind of effect, because throughout the diplomatic world, even Qatar has signed on to this plan, as well as Saudi Arabia and the UAE and a whole lot of other countries, including, I think, even Indonesia and a whole bunch of Arab countries and Muslim countries have signed on to this and said, yeah, let's do this, which basically means Hamas has lost all their support. Maybe Iran is still supporting them. I mean, I know they are, but even Qatar, is telling Hamas, hey guys, the game is over. Like, this is exactly, which is why I keep saying, by the way, even if all of the targets survived, it sends a very strong message, because it basically tells Qatar, hey, you can't keep hiding these people in your nice fancy hotels and buildings. You either get rid of these people or we will. And that's exactly what's happened. So Qatar has basically said to the Hamas guys, the game is over. Give up the goods. You're done. Even if we support you, you're still done. Like, we're not gonna have our country get repeatedly bombed and scare the crap out of the people living in Qatar just because you guys want to live here and cause problems for us. Internationally, Qatar is seen as a pariah in that sense. Sure, people love Qatar because they own so many things, because they have all that money. But people who advocate for Israel view Qatar for what it is. It is a dark force influencer trying to convince the world that, all the money they spend to propagandize and spread their version of the Islamic Brotherhood, which, by the way, they are the literal cap. Is somehow they want the world to perceive that as a good thing, but Israel advocates clearly see through that, and we know that Hamas is in fact getting a lot of propaganda support and financial support and other kinds of support from Qatar directly, and Qatar does not want that to be their image, right? Like, they realize that scene in the play has expired and they need to move on to the next scene. And hopefully that means that they recognize that it's time to put the hatred behind them and make peace and live in prosperity in the Middle East together with Israel. And by the way, if this plan does go through, if Hamas actually accepts it and does release the hostages by the 72 hours after Bibi Netanyahu said Israel accepts this plan, which he said during that press conference, that means that probably very soon we will also see a peace deal between Israel and Saudi Arabia. We don't know exactly when. Maybe it'll still take years, but the probability is greater rather than smaller that Israel will make a peace deal with Saudi Arabia in the coming foreseeable future. And that would be an amazing step forward for the entire region, because it would basically end the how do you call it, the monopoly on the so-called Arab refusal at writ large to make peace with Israel, because of the mothership of Islam, right? Saudi Arabia, where Mecca and Medina both are. If the government that controls that land makes peace with Israel, then there is no reason for pretty much any other Muslim country, or at least Sunni Muslim country, to make peace with Israel. And frankly, even Shia countries are going to have a hard time justifying not making peace with Israel. I mean, sure, they will not, like Iran won't make peace with Israel for the foreseeable future, but at some point they're going to feel that pressure. When the entire Muslim world, except for the Shia countries or the Shia governments, have made peace with Israel, they will literally be the outliers to the party. And if the Palestinians are only getting support from Shias and not even from their own fellow Sunnis, it's going to be mighty weird for that kind of outlier to exist. So who knows? Maybe this could be the start of something wonderful. But I ain't waiting up nights. Part of the reason, by the way, that I'm not necessarily hopeful is this. I mean, I am cautiously optimistic, but I'm not necessarily super hopeful that it's going to happen, or super, confident that's going to happen. Why? Well, because first of all, there's already a discrepancy in the launch date. So technically speaking, the clock is ticking since already practically a couple days, right? Since about 38 hours or whatever it is, maybe 36, whatever, roughly a day and a half since they said that press conference. On top of that, during the press conference itself, President Trump said that the clock starts ticking 72 hours after Hamas accepts the deal. Well, Hamas has not accepted the deal. So what matters more, what Trump says or what the document says in writing? Well, obviously, in practical terms, in a normal situation, you would say, well, of course, what's written matters more than what a person says, because a person can misspeak easily, especially in a press conference. Well, you're talking about Donald Trump here. He misspeaks all the time on purpose as well as not on purpose. So what he says actually matters more than what's in the text. Why? Because, well, look at what happened the last time that he told somebody you have 2 days, and then they ended up having 1 day. Right? We're talking about Iran here, right? So he might extend the time by a day, because he said you have 3, and then he said afterwards, he said it yesterday, he said Hamas has 3 or 4 days. He's going to give them 3 or 4 days to make up their mind. Well, if you know anything about the recent past, you know that might mean they have 2 days. So it might be that he's actually sticking to the letter of the document, which says 3 days from the time that Israel announced it, or it might be that he's extending it by a day or two, because that's what he said in multiple ways now. Like, he said that it starts when Hamas accepts it, and he said after that he's like 3 or 4 days. So he's being very wishy-washy about that. Clearly that's on purpose. Clearly that's because he wants this deal to go through. Clearly that's because, of course, if he solves this thing that looks great for him, and, hey, man, credit goes to where it's due. And if he gets this thing solved, if he helps end this war, well, hats off to him, chapeau. Like, you don't have to like the guy to appreciate that he might help end the war, okay? And if you do like the guy, well, bully for you. But my point is, ending this war is vital to people who live in this region. We are sick and tired of war. We would like it to end. And we need the leaders, especially the Hamas, to stop the war. It's a matter of their choice. And they are being granted all kinds of benefits if they stop, right? Like, their leaders will get amnesty, meaning Israel will not pursue them, right? They can leave the Gaza Strip safely, and Israel will not hunt them down. That's what amnesty means. Of course, if they commit further crimes in the future, well, that's a whole different story. But if they go on about their lives peacefully, Israel will not pursue them. That's part of the deal. And those who stay in Gaza can stay if they disavow violence. Now, do I believe they're going to all really disavow violence? Of course not. Do I think that's a huge loophole in the agreement? Because many of them will just either, blanket agree to it, or the government of Hamas will say, yeah, we agree to that. I think they'll lie. Right? They will lie to save their hides. And especially if the leaders of Hamas tell them we're accepting this deal, then they will publicly say that they disavow violence, or they may say it, or they may indicate that they will say it, but actually not say it, because that would be typical of them. But they'll give you some kind of answer like, "Well, we always disavow violence against civilians, but we still, maintain the rights of resistance and all that." They're going to say something with forked tongue, as they always do, because that is how they speak. So do not expect them to actually disavow violence. Do not expect them to actually de-radicalize, even though that's the first point in the plan. Okay? Do not expect these things, because they're not realistic. On the Israeli side, there is the probability that Netanyahu's cabinet will break. His government may break, at least temporarily, because at least one minister, a very far-right minister, Ben Gvir, has said that he will leave the government if this plan goes through, and Smotrich has said he really does not like the plan at all, but he has not said he would leave the government. But the thing is, even if Ben Gvir does leave the government, you have to remember that people like Lapid have promised that they would actually step in to offer at least temporary support so that the plan could go through. So Lapid would essentially join the government again, and his party would, support the plan going through. And then, in all probability, because there is an election due in Israel in 2026, but it will probably happen sooner than the normal expected date, because, in this kind of situation, you're going to have a lot of hot tempers flying around and people demanding all kinds of things, and the political atmosphere is likely to be kind of a circus for the next 1 to 6 months in Israel after this deal goes through, whenever it happens. And that Bibi would like to get this war done within the next week or two, so he could say basically it was a 2-year war and he got it done and he was victorious. And we changed the landscape, we changed the 7 fronts, the landscape of the 7 fronts with which Israel was fighting. Hello there. You are what? Religious? I'm a human being, man. I am a Jew, I am a Zionist. Religious is a subjective definition. So there's a lot there in terms of what we are likely to see politically in Israel during the upcoming election campaign. Will Bibi Netanyahu remain in power, or will he be ousted from power like Churchill after World War II? Well, it's not quite the same situation, but there are some similarities, there are some differences. I will be covering more of those in the future videos, so if you want to see me talk about those topics, make sure you subscribe, hit the like button, write a comment, and share this video to make sure that I continue to make more of this kind of content for you guys. And that's going to do it for now. I will quickly get about the day, readying for the day of the Kippurs. So again, Gmar Chatima Tova, and fellow tribesmen and women. And yeah, what does I say? What? What? Kanguri Mashiach? What are you writing, bro? Anyway, be well. I hope you have a wonderful day and a happy holiday. If you're fasting, Som Kal. If you're not fasting, have a wonderful day anyway. And I'll see you guys in the next one. I might actually jump back on relatively soon. We'll see. But yeah, in the meantime, till then, shalom.